In the dead of night, when the moon is high and ill winds blow, and the banshees cry and the moonlight casts an unearthly glow, arise, my love, with tales of woe.
Good evening. It is 12 midnight, the paranormal hour. Welcome to Ghost to Ghost. I'm your host, Chief Lawson. Ghost to Ghost is a podcast to discuss all paranormal and parapsychology subjects. You can find Ghost to Ghost on all major formats, so tell your friends, tell your family. Come listen to Ghost to Ghost. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ghost to Ghost. It is the midnight hour. It's time for our show, and tonight we have a special treat for you. We have some special guests from Travelers Moon. Tonight with me, I have Sierra Medley, our newest member of the Spirit Group and our podcast producer.
Hello.
We have Heather Lawson, our case manager and podcast director.
Hello.
And I have my special guest, Chris and Kelly from Travelers Moon Paranormal. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
And I want to thank you guys because last time we tried this is before we had our new podcasting unit, but we managed to get a bad SD card. Now we've put some processes in place where we double check all this stuff and we don't get into problems, but we did not know that, and we recorded a session back earlier this year with you guys, and I went to go edit it, and I didn't check it that day, and I waited the next day. I put the SD card in, and it is blank. Matter of fact, it is corrupted and will not write, will not read. It's just a mess. So we made sure we got rid of that card. We went through all the other cards. We double-checked them and tested them. So we're pretty reassured today that we will not have that problem. So
no worries.
I mean, that's the name of the game, though, right? I've had a nickel for a time been burned by technology.
Got a habit of breaking technology. I feel like I maybe ought to apologize.
Well, I tell you, I don't. Well, what you would apologize for is our equipment. So I am sorry.
I have a tendency to break things.
Oh, do
so.
you? Well, we had a tech manager years ago, and he'd either break it or lose it. That was his two policies. And I'll never forget, we had this great amount of evidence. We'd actually was investigating a Masonic Lodge, and we got a great shadow figure picture in it. And it was on the laptop. And I told him, I said, whatever happens, make sure you get this together. He managed to walk off and leave the laptop in a closet area of the hotel. And we get home, and we start looking for this laptop, and it's nowhere to be found. I'm saying, well, where is it? Oh, my God, I think I left it at the hotel. We call the hotel, and, of course, it's this is early on when notebooks and laptops were pretty darn expensive, and, they weren't going to give it up. I mean, no, we didn't see anything. We cleaned the room. There's nothing there. So we end up losing it. It just so happens the shot was made on camera, and the camera had some embedded memory. So we didn't find that out for about 2 years. And we were getting ready to upgrade our system, and we took the camera, and we were looking at it. My current tech manager says, holy cow, we've got the photo. And I go, what photo? He says, the photo we lost, when we were out on the lodge. I said, where? He says, the camera has built-in memory. He says, there's actually a micro SD card in here. He says, I never knew that. Through two tech managers, neither one knew the card was there.
That.
Yeah, but we managed to rescue the photo, and we got it back sometime after the fact. But, you just never know. I mean, and the bad thing is, unless you're investigating day in, day out, the equipment sits for a while, and then you come back to it, it's all new. And we've fought those kind of problems a lot. I mean, we really have. One thing we do is we have laminated quick cards that tell you how to fire the gear up and how to calibrate it and how to get it working, which helps. It does help. But, yeah, the bad thing about electronics are if it's going to go wrong, it will. I mean, that's just, part of it. So we did add something new to our broadcast. And I tell you what, if you don't care, guys, we're going to take a really quick break. Hang on. We'll be right back after these messages. Okay, folks, we're back. Sorry for the technical difficulty. So, again, we're back with Chris and Kelly from Travelers Moon. And tonight we've added something into our show. It's a little new, and we talk about what we're drinking. I'm assuming, dear sir, that you're having an adult beverage at this point.
I feel very called out, but you're absolutely correct, yes.
What are you drinking tonight, lad?
I've got a glass of Glenmorangie by me, just the original, the 10-year.
Oh, I got you on that one. I got Glenadridge 18 right now I'm going through. And this was a gift from one of our newest members, Eric Knight, and it's very smooth. I'll tell you, it's got a nice fruity bouquet, and it's got a real oaky wood finish. So, and Heather, what are you drinking?
An amaretto sour or
yes,
whiskey
an
sour?
amaretto sour. I made it, so that's why she's asking. Kelly, what do you have to drink?
Water?
Oh, you know that's unhealthy. You should see what fish do in it.
Yeah, see.
Well, that's okay. Sierra, what do you have to drink?
I also have an amaretto sour.
Ah, yes. So we're
Well, that's why I was
equipped.
asking, because I know Sierra likes the whiskey sours. But
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked because I wasn't paying attention when he made it.
Yeah, I both made amarettos. I'm sorry. Did you ask me for a whiskey?
I didn't. I just asked for a sour, so you're
Okay,
in the
yeah.
clear.
It's been one of them days. Like I said, I'm nursing a cracked rib. And, you know, that's one of those things where you move the right way, your whole world changes. Yeah, there's nothing anybody can do about it, but you just sit around waiting for it to heal. And the older you get, the longer it takes. So, well, hey, let's start out tonight. I got a chance to kind of breeze through earlier on some of your YouTube channels just to kind of relive some things. And one thing we'll start out with, if that's okay with you guys, let's talk about the first book you wrote on Edinburgh Manor in Iowa.
Yeah, totally.
What do you now? Was this? I know this is your first book, and my first book was just it fell in my lap. So, exactly, was this something that really spoke to you, or is this one of your favorite places? Is why you dedicated your first book to it?
Actually, it was first book because the documentary fell through.
Okay.
We were talking technical troubles. So the book is Fear and Fascination in Edinburgh Manor. For anybody not familiar, the Edinburgh Manor is a location in Iowa that used to be, the property was the Jones County Port Farm from 1856 to 1910. And the building that stands today was opened as the Jones County Home for the Incurably Insane in 1911, lost funding from the state in 2010, and it's been more or less abandoned ever since. And this was back in, all the events in the book took place back in 2013.
Yes.
And I had actually been accepted to the New York Film Academy in there.
Oh, congratulations.
For documentary work. And my whole life is this series of happy accidents that I believe we get put where we're supposed to be in the long run, even if it doesn't make sense at the time.
Sure.
And for reasons were very infuriating at the time, film school fell through, but I knew like this film work was still something I wanted to, potentially pursue. And at the time I had been in the paranormal for 5-6 years.
Yeah. Okay.
And just a paranormal style documentary made sense. And I was trying to, at the time, follow this big blueprint, however you want to phrase it, that, at the time, I think that's like when Ghost Adventures was really gaining momentum.
Oh, yeah.
And, I've always been a huge fan of ghost hunters. And I was like, I could do something like that, but how do I make it, bigger, better? I had the, aggressive ignorance that any young man has before doing something particularly stupid. And I was like, these guys are pretty badass, and they're going into a place, for a night, and it's like a group of people. So how cool would it be if I went into a place for 5 days by myself?
Yeah.
And I had spent my week. I had filmed it all, and then seems to be the theme of the night up to this point. It's been technical errors. I had filmed all this on high tapes, if it gives you an idea of how long ago it's been.
Yeah.
And,
I remember those.
And I get it all transferred to digital. It's all on my computer at the time. I actually had everything reviewed. Like I had gone through, 110 hours of 5 stationary cameras, almost 80 hours of handheld camera video, hundreds of hours of audio, and I go to start part 2 of the documentary, and my screen is blue. I got that terrible blue screen of death. I don't know if that's still a thing that plagues computers.
Oh no,
these
it
days.
is. I mean, now that we're away from Windows NT, you don't see it as much, but it still happens.
Oh, I get it at work.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and it
So,
happens
it
on
was
other things as well.
it was a huge kind of life event that I had hung on to those stories for years, and I had actually started it as a blog series on my old website, and COVID hit, and I had a lot of free time on my hands because I worked at a gym at the time, and it's it's not an essential worker, so I had 2 months of time
free
on my
time.
hands, and
Yeah.
I wrote a book.
Wow. I remember. I mean, COVID hit everybody a unique way, I think, and
It gave us COVID.
yeah, we ended up with it before the vaccine came out, and I had to laugh because when we all, and just to digress slightly, when we all started to shelter in, everybody's running out. Most people are buying toilet paper, and we're kind of part prepper. I think I've always believed in having stuff on hand. We had 80 rolls on hand, 2 packages from Costco. But we went out and spent $500 at the liquor store because I wanted to make sure we had plenty of liquor. So I didn't know how
Yeah, your
long they were
priorities
locking us down for, Well, yeah, you got to do the essentials. And I'll never forget a buddy of mine, another fireman, helped us move. And he told me, he says, "You son of a bitch," he says, "you've got a shitload of liquor. Why are you buying more?" I said, "Well, that's for guests. We don't actually drink that stuff." I go, we just stock that for guests. And I said, the stuff we drink is what we went and bought. We bought it in a bottle.
The stuff that we drink.
Yeah, the stuff we drank, gin and scotch, gin for Heather and scotch for me. And we got a few bottles of wine, and I think...
because I wasn't diabetic yet.
No, you weren't diabetic, so we were still drinking a lot of wines. And then we picked up a jar of pickles marinated in moonshine. I'm a big pickle guy.
Actually, I really like those.
Do you? I have.
Shaking your head right now. I really like those.
Oh, I tell you what, people make fun of my pickle fetish, but I've got this giant jar up in the kitchen, and we house and there's a certain type of pickles. I'm a snobby pickle kind of guys, and so we get these called Freestones. They're hard to find. Occasionally you'll find them in the bags. They're like the Van Hossen and Van Hossen and the Sneaky Pete pickles. There's some individual. We buy them in a 2-gallon jug, and I only buy 1 jug. There's only one place in Annapolis that has them, and I go get 4 of these. And it's been a rather fascinating study for the cashiers and the stock people there because they all know me. I come in about once every 3 months, 2 months to pick up a load of pickles. And finally, one of the guys asked me, he says, "Are you using these for something?" I go, "Yeah, snack." He goes,
Eating.
There's no nefarious purposes. I said, no, we're not we're not making drugs out. We're not shooting a porn with them. I go, no, I just like pickles, and I'm diabetic. I can't have a lot, so I like these. But we'll get a jar, and we've given those away for Christmas gifts. People will taste one and say, "Oh my God!" So we end up going and getting a jug and giving it away as a Christmas gift. But we go get it, and then the jar holds 4 gallons worth of pickles, and so we pour that in, and we keep a set of tongs on a little saucer there. Anybody can come and grab them one. But yeah, we even have pickle candy here in the crypt. I found it one time, and I swear to God, it's kind of like eating a Clausen. It's got it has a lot of garlic, but they're good. And we found them in Brown County. One time, I and the wife partly owned a shop there, and so we got the candy from a little place down there. So I've always been kind of a pickle nut. But oh God, yes, and I tell you what, those pickles in the moonshine, those were exceptionally good. That's
we're actually putting out a pickle beer here pretty soon.
Well, I've seen a few places. I think it was, which I'm not a Popeyes fan, but Popeyes had like pickle seasoning for their chicken sandwiches, and they've had several other pickle things. I'm starting to see more of that nowadays, and we have a commercial smoker and a grill and a flat grill, and we like to cook out. We do smoking of foods every holiday, and the company I get a lot of seasonings off of, PS Seasonings, they have a dill pickle seasoning. They sent me a free sampler. I don't know what the heck I'm going to use it on, but I've seen some interesting things. Yeah, we'll find something guaranteed. But But no, sorry, I didn't mean to get too far off subject. But anyway, so now let me ask you, when you this was kind of a solo project. So when you did shoot this, now this was for a documentary. At what point did you decide to move it into a book?
When I lost all the footage.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh gosh.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
that blue screen of death occurred before I had the opportunity to back up a lot of my taped footage.
Oh dear.
And over the course of that time, some of the tapes had been taped over. Some devices had been cleared, and yeah, it was one of those like stories I just kind of hung on to for years, and I would tell it in passing, but I didn't have anything too not necessarily concrete to go with it, but I didn't have. It just felt like it had to be told in its entirety. So yeah, COVID came around, and I just decided, it's time to actually make the story come to fruition in a more material sense. It's not what I had plans,
Sorry,
but
I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at the.
No, we have at the crypt, we have one problem, and I hate to interrupt, but I'm explaining this in case you heard the noise. I feel like there was a movie that Elvis Presley made one time called Blue Hawaii, and I feel like the guy in the outhouse. Unfortunately, our main sewer line runs through this room, so and my 2 teenage stepchildren are upstairs, half sleeping, half watching their phones or PlayStation or whatever. And they just flushed. And when it does, you hear this cascade of water. As it comes down the individual pipes to the main and the main out to the sewer, it all has to pass through the crypt. And just about the time you started that, I could hear it. I didn't know where you could hear it or not. It picked up on my mic. You heard this rushing water. At first, it sounds really nice till you know what it is. It sounds like a fountain. And then you realize it's not a fountain. So I apologize, and that's what Heather was laughing about. She wasn't laughing at what you were talking about. So I make that apology.
I would never laugh at you losing all your footage.
No, that's man. Yeah, I can't. Well, I remember those days. We had.
I get to laugh at it nowadays. Like I have to look back at it and laugh, or I get depressed.
Oh yeah.
But no, I think it was supposed to be told in that particular vein, and I think it was well received as a book. And anymore, I'm just as much, if not more, into writing than I am actually putting together video. So I think it just kind of helped put me on the right course to where I'm supposed to be.
Well, I think sometimes the more people I talk about, because I'm working on my second book, and most people are saying, well, I go, well, okay, why did you pick that genre, or why, because several people, including Mike, we were talking to earlier today, he had came from another genre altogether, had nothing to do with paranormal. He was writing fiction. And I remember talking to Richard Estep last August, and we were sitting there having a drink. Now, he told me that his publisher came to him at one point and said, well, paranormal books are down a little bit. I need you to write a Western. I go, how the hell did you do that? He says, well, when the money's right, yes, you write the Western. He said, and basically, I guess he grabbed a few, Western research, and next thing you know, he's a Western writer. And, I sit and I kind of, one overall theme between all these guys is a lot of people say, well, it fell into my lap, or, it just worked out that way. And I think sometimes that's the best way to write, is just let nature take its course and the chips fall where they may. Now, of course, that's not so good when you lose all your evidence or anything else. But I mean, as far as writing and inspiration, I think that's probably a good model to follow, But I remember the days of Super 8 tape. I think the worst thing we had back in the day, we were told, if you go back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s in paranormal research and parapsychology, there was a fad for a while. You had to use Polaroid cameras because they believed that would capture a ghost image better than any other camera. So you've got, and you're told, we used Instamatics. The Kodak, was it One Shot, honey? Was that the one I had to flip up? It was called One Shots.
It sounds right.
Yeah, sounds right. And you'd have to sit there and wave the picture while it's developing. And, somebody asked me, said, you still got any of those pictures? I go, and Polaroid, that was the downside, eventually went away. You could preserve them, but, we didn't think to scan them back then. We didn't know that Polaroid would eventually.
I might have some of my pictures. Not ghost pictures, but just regular
Yeah,
pictures.
I mean, I probably do someplace if they're still good, but they gradually degrade. It's over a longer period, but we use those. I remember I had a Sears cassette recorder I do EVP work with, and that was pretty standard back then. Huge unit, took like 6 C batteries, and it ate tapes. About every 5th tape, it would eat it. You'd have to sit down and work the tape out so it didn't break. And then get a pencil and wind it up. And, it was a mess. And I mean...
At least it wasn't reel to reel.
No, it wasn't reel to reel. That was one thing. I had one of those. We didn't do any work on them, but I had some music on it. But I felt like Kojak the Night Stalker. I had that on, on a strap around your neck, and you had a microphone you held, and you got so much contamination from bumping in and moving the microphone, especially if it was winter and you got a coat on, like a puffer jacket or something. You get a little bit of static. So. But anyway, I remember those days, and I'm so glad we're beyond them now. I mean, heck, everything's on a card. I can pull all the evidence in a matter of minutes. And we do that. When we get back from an investigation, one of the policies we have is everything gets a memory dump immediately. It goes into a portable hard drive here in the crypt, so that way we know that the evidence is secure. So it...
and we have that policy. It's whether or not the execution actually gets done that's...
Yeah, we've had that problem too, and we've also the first time I think we did an SD session, we didn't have the spirit box turned on, nor did we have we had it turned on but not the recording feature, nor do we have a card in it to record. So, and of course, your first one when it doesn't have a card is always the one you get the best results from. So, been there, done that. So I mean, I get that. So, well now. Did you tell me you're working on your second book now?
Oh, it's done.
Oh, it's done.
Out in the,
Okay.
Out in the ether.
Okay.
We went out for the first time at the Parasitecon mid-May.
Oh, okay. And what's the name of the book?
What happened in Lancaster?
What happened in Lancaster?
A Travelers Moon investigation.
All right. Outstanding. All right, I'll have to get a copy of that. So, now, tell me a little bit about that book and about Lancaster, the investigation.
So the investigation was about the Fairfield County Infirmary.
Yes.
And we had booked it for a private investigation. We planned to go out there and film. And film we did. It was just the two of us. And we had one of those experiences that even today we look back at it, and every once in a while we just look at each other and kind of like, what the hell happened? What was that?
Really?
It's the first time in my more than 2 decades of investigating that I looked at the person I was with and we're like, maybe we just don't go back in for our stuff.
Wow.
There's that real life. You think they'll let us back in for our shit in the morning.
Wow.
Conversation, because
it was
that bad.
It was beyond something that we have ever experienced before.
Well,
and we don't know. We very honestly, I mean,
as part of what the title of the book, where the title of the book comes from, because like for the longest time after that investigation, we look at each other like, what the hell was that? What happened?
What happened? Yeah.
Wow. Well, can you share some of it with us? I mean, I know some of it probably
so
is well ingrained in your mind.
Yeah, it's very well ingrained, and it's tough because the investigation went, over the course of probably 8 hours.
Okay.
And up to that point, like it had been actually a really good investigation up to that point, getting very intelligent yes/no conversations with a REM pod that I've never seen in 17 years. And you actually watched we love utilizing those cat toys. The ones that like have that little vibration sensor to them, they light up if they move at all. And you actually watched one like roll across a windowsill.
Yeah, we were sitting in the doll room.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the doll room, and I love to use the husband as bait. He's sitting over in a chair, and there's a bunch of dolls in the window next to him. He's not.
Yeah, what the hell is this thing with everywhere needing a doll room?
Yeah, I was just gonna say he's not a big fan.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah. So he's sitting in this chair, and there's a window, and on the windowsill there's a bunch of dolls. And I said, "Hey, you want to see a big burly man scream like a girl? Move one of those dolls."
Yeah.
Well, they did move the dolls, but the cat ball that was sitting in that window rolls about halfway over and then rolls back.
Oh, now there you go.
Well, roll
Wow.
back. That's
Yeah.
There's no breeze. The windows are solid. There's nobody moving.
And this ball is in like it's this doll on a stand, and it's like we positioned it like the crook of her
dress.
feet separated. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it would took effort to roll it over that
Yeah.
material and out to, okay. Wow. Yeah.
And
Now,
just all in all, like an amazing investigation, and we were partway through this yes/no conversation with a REM pod that, if we hadn't got all of it on video, I don't know if I would have believed it. But for an hour and 6 minutes, we have this yes/no conversation.
that's the longest
And it
session I
started
know of.
before
a pretty good conversation.
Yeah.
And it started before we were even ready. Like, we'd set out, it's the para-REM, and we had set it out, and we set it on the autopsy table in the morgue room,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still setting up equipment. We're not even ready yet, and it goes off. And
Wow.
it's like, was that you? Beep. If that's really somebody doing that, can you do it again? Beep. It's like, it's not just that it went off. It was 100% intelligent.
Because then
Wow.
we opened it up to, can you, if we were to have a yes/no conversation, can you hit it once for yes, twice for no? Does that make sense? Beep. Just to show me you
Wow.
can. Can you double tap that for no? Beep, beep. Like,
Wow.
That's
I
pretty
thought
good.
somebody somewhere might be fucking with us with like a walkie-talkie or something.
yeah.
It was like to that degree.
And at one point, I'm like, okay, because it was a fairly new piece of equipment to us at that point still. And so at one point, I'm like, maybe it's just randomly going off and it's coincidentally going in tandem with us asking questions. So I'm
Yes.
like, okay, we're going to go like 60 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever it was. I don't remember what I said now. I said, I want absolutely nothing. Don't make it go off. And we sat there dead silent, did not go off. And I'm like, are you still there? Beep.
Wow.
Like,
Wonder they didn't
okay.
help you set up equipment. I mean, it sounds like to me they really wanted to communicate. Yeah. Wow. Hour long.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it gets better.
Okay.
But wait,
And it's
there's
But
tough
more.
wait,
because
there's
we
more.
talk about
Yeah.
book talks on this, and it's tough to like not. I want to share details, but I also don't want to give the whole thing away.
No, because yeah, you want them to buy the book. I get that. Yeah.
Oh, totally. Basically, a good portion of the way through this session,
Something changed.
something showed up,
Okay.
and between the two of us, it's well over 40, 45 years worth of experience here.
Yeah.
It's not anything like anything.
And never.
Well, if it shows up, they're always dark. I mean, you never get a light thing to show up. I mean, it's just think the way of it.
They don't like us that much.
It was a very intense experience, and it resulted in not just like sensational, like for like our like personal perceiving the like
Mm-hmm.
situations, like it was also some of the wildest actual phenomena that
Wow.
I've ever encountered.
And the funny thing is, so like the book goes into all of this, but we didn't even talk about the things that you found in the EVP review after the fact in the book,
And yeah, we did.
No,
Yeah, we did.
not enough detail.
Chapter 12.
Yeah, but not enough. Like there was more.
And yeah, and even after that, once we actually, so as cool as the like details in the book are, we actually got all of this on video. We got all of this on audio,
Wow.
and the
That's pretty good.
actual it'll be coming out hopefully here in the next month or two. Some of the most relevant and slightly disturbing EVP that
Oh, okay.
I've ever come across.
Now, will this be coming out on Facebook or on YouTube, or were you coming with YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, YouTube. All right. So, folks, if you're
Unless somebody
listening,
wants to pick
keep an
up
eye
a
out.
really low video quality thing on their streaming service.
Okay. That works. All right. Well, I don't want to.
It was such a weird experience, and it kept getting weirder as the night went on. Like
So this is
We had-
nothing like any of
we
the
saw-
other investigations you've ever done.
Nothing like
Nothing.
it. And it started, I mean, it's like it almost built, because you start with the ball moving a little bit, and then we start with this paragraph responding, and then it progresses from there to like
And there's this
sensations
fucking
and
crescendo. I go to the word cinematic a lot because,
Yeah.
like, as a writer, if I were to write a fiction novel that was like a horror story from the perspective of a paranormal
about two people
investigator,
trapped in an asylum.
like,
In a sanatorium,
there
yeah.
are so many details that, like,
hmm
oh, I definitely would have included that. And there were some details that I'm like, I never could have been that clever.
Yeah. And like the stupidest, scariest part of the whole evening was a piece of paper.
Really?
And that was the crescendo of the night that I'm
For
like,
you.
I'm done. I am done. I want out of here. I don't care. I'm done. Leave now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what time did you actually end up leaving? Did you wait to sunrise, or did you?
We went back in because we're idiots.
You're like, no,
Yeah.
we went back.
My philosophy was, my thinking at the time
I
was,
couldn't let it win.
and not even necessarily
Well,
letting
that's a
it
good
win, but
point. Letting it win. That's a good
I
point.
didn't want to lose. I didn't want to give something like
Yeah.
that kind of power over me.
Sure.
And it's a sense of pride, because I mean, we get asked a lot, have you ever been scared out of a location? Has there ever been a location that you wouldn't go back into? I've never had to say yes. Even in the days of not investigating with my protector, when I was all by myself, I'd never been chased out of a location.
Yeah. And that
And I didn't want to give whatever this was that power.
it's kind of that drawing a line in the sand, saying,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I'm not going any
It's-
further, and you're not coming any further this direction. So
Yeah,
But
definitely.
there was-
'Cause we gave that area its space the rest of the night.
But there was also a weird part of me that, like, the spirit that we were talking to before shit went crazy, I didn't want him to think he was alone,
Yeah.
you know? And I
Yeah.
know that sounds so stupid, because at the end of the morning, we still left. And he's, you know, it's not like
Yeah.
I was in, but like,
but for that short period of time, he wasn't alone.
Yeah, because like while whatever showed up and what transpired,
hmm
we're still communicating with this guy, and I think part of the unnerving set part for me is we were very much getting the sense that
Still,
he was anxious about it
Oh,
too.
he was. 100%.
Well, and
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of I'm not going to make this a characteristic thing, but most sanitariums, they have the good and the bad, the ugly, so to speak, and you always get those dark entities that come in and bully all the other spirits there. And you know, you can be having a wonderful conversation, a productive conversation, with one of the patient or even staff goes there, and then this thing comes in, and suddenly
was
everything
staff.
changes.
And I kind of use the afterword of the book to very much touch on this older concept of old Latin word genius loci. It's like the prevailing spirit of a place, and it's this idea that if you have a place like these asylums, sanatoriums, mental hospitals, all things this place was, that over time that energy not only collects, but if I don't know if situations have to be right or if it's just how things work, but something actually intelligent kind of crawls out of this ooze and actually becomes a spirit of the place.
I think that sometimes it is a collective of the right time, the right person, the right place, the right climate. We've been on investigations before where, we might have done a follow-up, and the first one was just productive. We got a lot of evidence. The second one was dead as everything. And I remember one time we investigated a little place up in Noblesville, and the night it happened, of course, we never did pay much mind to weather. We do now. We've learned a little bit. This is probably a good 15, 16, 17 years ago. That evening, it was in the dog days of August, and we had one of those nasty summer thunderstorms come through. Have a lot of static electricity, and the buildup on that, as it was moving slow. We had one of the guys watching it because we knew it was coming in, and we had a lot of activity. over the 2 or 3 hours till it got there. Once it got there, we kind of took a break because there was too much noise contamination with the thunder and everything. Once it was done, the whole environment felt wrong. It was cold. It was nothing there. We got no activity, but it provided a media, if you will, for them to come in on. And we were active as everything. We went back about a week later to try to do another investigation to verify anything else, and we got very little. I think had we not went on a night storm didn't come in, I don't think we'd have found much. We'd have thought it wasn't very active. Because sometimes I think some locations just have to have that right mix to make it work, to really...
Oh, yeah, totally. And that's...
We've talked about that. Like, if we went back, would it still be there?
Would any of that have happened?
Yeah, and if is it always there? If it's always there, why aren't other people experiencing this?
I talked to some people this last weekend that said something funky's there.
But yet not everybody experienced it like we did. And if it's not always there, or even if it is, why did we have the experience that we had?
Well,
what was it about that night, that combination, that moment that made that happen the way that it did?
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're psychic, right? Or you're okay. So to a certain degree, that could have had. Now, Chris, brother, you'll have to correct me on this. Are you psychic as well, or are you?
I like to tell people that it's a terrible joke, and I'm have to admit I'm stealing it from an old friend. But she's a psychic medium. I'm more of a psychic medium rare. I'm not.
Everybody always asks me. They always said, "Are you sensitive?" I go, "No, I got 3 ex-wives that say no." It, I get that. So,
I can definitely pick up on things, and I'm actually weirdly prone to seeing things. And I tell people I'm not schizophrenic because I know I can turn it on and off.
Sure. And that's important.
Yeah. Oh, very important. But yeah, and that's a big detail that, we also look back to a lot, because in the 12, 13 years, Kelly and I have been investigating together. To hear her speak anytime, it is always he, she, they, like human pronouns, people.
Yes.
And I actually caught her like halfway through the session that night. Like, she never used those pronouns. It was always it.
Yeah. And that should say something right there.
And I wasn't catching it, but after he pointed it out, I mean, and honestly, during the thing, I was trying to decipher it. Because spirits will sometimes want to hide. They won't want to.
Oh, God, yes. They'll play cat and mouse, or they'll play hide and go seek.
They won't want to disclose male, female, or any details about themselves. And sometimes they'll want to make themselves appear bigger, badder than they are, but usually I can get through that. And I can see, or at least feel male, female, and get some details, but there was nothing. There was nothing.
I tell you what, that's the thing. I always had to laugh because we use a certain location. It's a lodge, and we use it for testing equipment and everything. It's one of my home lodges, and all the masters over the years have always let us in there. Because one, there's not a whole lot of people using the building between the hours of midnight or even 8 or 9 till 4 in the morning, so they don't really care. And it's always been very active. And, but, the thing is, we'll have some that will chase from the basement to the main floor to the upper floor. You may have to, they may appear, and then all of a sudden they just stop communicating, and then you'll pick them up later on a different floor. I mean, we get that from time to time. One of my funny stories about that was there's an older guy there, an older brother Mason, and he knew we'd been using this building 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year, for 4 or 5 years. One day, I said something about, because someone had asked me about what we'd found over the years, and I said, well, if you guys want, see how many of the brothers are interested in sitting through a little session, we'll do a little reveal for them and show them what we got. And this guy's in his 80s. He's sitting there very quietly. He looks at me and says, well, I could tell you who haunts this place. And I looked at him, I said, you know, it might have been nice if you'd have mentioned that about 5 years ago when we were doing research. And he goes, well, you never asked me.
Yeah.
I go, okay. And I go, and he goes over, we have a wall, has all these past masters since our lodge was formed in 58. It has every master of every year from 58 forward. And so he looks at me and points at this guy and says, he's the guy that's haunting the place. I go, okay. I go, what do you base that evidence on? He says, well, I know. I go, okay, well, why do you know?
Because I know.
And he goes, well, you know, he loved this place. And his wife died, and he spent almost all waking hours. He'd show up here to open the building up by himself and sit downstairs and play, solitaire or play pool. And he said he'd fix things. He was just bored. He didn't want to be at home by himself. And he said he spent tons of time here till he himself died. And, but it's funny because he's the one guy that I'm speaking of, and I'd rather not use his name online or on air. But I tell you what, he plays hide and seek. And it's like he wants to talk to us. Now, I don't believe there's an entity suppressing him. Sometimes he wants to talk to us, sometimes he doesn't. And
I very much get that. I'm somewhere between introvert and extrovert, and I have days where I'm like, absolutely, I'll talk to anybody about anything for as long as I can, and other days, like, eye contact is a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we all go through that. The wife gets on me. The days that I have a lot of fun, the days that people call wanting to sell me a house warranty, refinance my house, sell me a car warranty, because I find those as opportunities for fun. And I start heckling these people. Yeah, to no end. I had a Jehovah's Witness.
Sometimes I do just give him my phone when people just keep calling me. I say, here, answer.
Oh, I love to go at these folks because they're so fun to mess with. And, I've always found it amusing. But the funny thing is, after we've had a little conversation, they don't ever call back. But
I wonder why.
Yeah, I had some Indian fellow one time. I did this redneck accent, and I kept going, "You're a terrorist, aren't you, son?" And he go, "I'm not. I'm Indian. I'm Indian." And, oh my God, I had him so worried by the time we hung up the phone. But sometimes boredom has to. You have to have something to do. That's all I can say. But there's a lot of times I get that. I think everybody goes through spells where they don't want to talk to people, and other times when they do. And I think spiritual. The biggest thing that most people, especially I find with new investigators, are they forget these people were once like you and I. No different. And if you don't treat them with the same amount of respect. I mean, I went through a class several years ago with MJ, and one thing that she brought out was if you go into a place, okay, like sanitariums, reformatories, places that are visited every weekend by another paranormal group, or amateur paranormal investigators, it's the same drill. What's your name? Who are you? When did you die? Do you know you're dead? And I found that treat it like a conversation.
Oh, it's gonna be so dull.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, could you imagine? If I was dead, I sit here. This is what I think about a lot of times. I sit here and think about how I could screw with other investigators. I'm thinking, the first time they put a recorder down, I'm gonna run over to it and go, "I am Legion," and just walk away, and see what they do next. I mean, it makes you wonder how many ghosts are screwing with us just for the fun of being able to screw with us. But anyway.
I can't wait to become a ghost. I have plans.
Yeah, I got a list. I got a list of names. My co-founder retired many years ago, and I told him one time, I said, if I go before you, every time you have sex, I'm going to appear in the corner and critique. And he goes, "You rotten son." I go, "Yeah." I go, "Dude, I'm serious." I said, "I'm not kidding you." And I always gave him a hard way to go. But I think we all have those lists, what happens when. So, well, I'm going to let the second book go for now because I want everybody to buy the book and not we don't want to give away all the secrets. But
eventually we'll postulate how to tell people about it without telling them
everything
about it. But
we've got some presentations coming up. So
my lecture circuit's starting to fill up. We've got 2 programs. One this summer it came popular, which is one on Irish ghosts and folk legends, and I actually put the kilt on. I go out and we go through them, but we do one at Christmas. and that's one of the big popular ones, and they're starting to book now. It's actually for Christmas ghosts and other denizens. We do Krampus, and I have a fellow bagpipe friend of mine, and he dresses as Krampus. He does the B-Town Krampus and some of the Krampus walks. So a lot of times I can get him to go out with us. He knows we're, we use the lecturing to help raise funds for, equipment and so forth. And so we're starting to get a pretty good cycle in. The October month, of course, is every paranormal investigator is popular in October. So, but yeah, I hate to say this, when you get older, the first thing you do is you realize everywhere you go, you find a good restaurant. And so depending on which library or which facility I'm lecturing at, I try to find a really good restaurant to stop and eat. And but we've got a few on the calendar already, and I've got another one that contacted us this week. So that's starting to fill up, so I understand that. Couple of things, because I don't want to keep you guys forever, but talk about some of the other investigations I got a chance to look at.
Don't
one
listen
of them,
to him. He does.
well, yeah. I think I kept Mike about an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes. I kept him on for a while. But it was hard getting in his schedule. I know it's been hard getting you guys a schedule, so I try to get everything out I can. One thing I enjoyed, I was watching YouTube, we were talking about the Ed Gein investigation.
Yeah, that one was weird.
Yeah, that's the one I want to hear. Because I tell you what, I've got...
I was drinking.
Yeah, she just spit Mountain Dew all over the place. And this is why we can't have nice things. Anyway, yeah. Give me dirty looks. But anyway, I'll tell you, Ed Gein, I read the book on him, which I can't remember the author. I don't have it right in front of me. It's over on the bookshelf. But when I read that, of course, it comes with black and white photos, crime photos. And,
Oh, yeah.
oh my God. Yeah.
I don't know if the nipple belt's in there, but Jesus Christ.
No, that one, I
If
think that
anybody
one's
has
in
the
there.
opportunity to look up the nipple belt,
Yeah,
those are
nip-
two words I never thought I'd be saying in that particular
Or
book.
should you?
Nipple belt, there's a lamp, there's a picture. I've got one that's got some extra
it's so
photos.
creative, really.
Yeah, the
Oh, that's a
lamp,
word
the
for it.
chair, Yeah.
It's macabre, but it's also very creative. Like, creative
Oh,
is
yeah.
still the word. We prefer to keep it to, people like Van Gogh or,
Yes.
Da Vinci or Salvador Dali.
Enjoyable, creative.
Well, we were
It's
talking
enjoyable
about...
creativity, but it's,
Oh, yeah,
I
we
think
were talking about the
creativity is
inspiration this gave. This is the
there was
inspiration for Psycho. It was the inspiration for Leatherface. It was the inspiration for Silence of the Lambs. I mean, oh my God, this guy, he's got to hold some sort of rank and title there, in all honesty. So I noticed, and I didn't get to watch the whole video, but I saw you guys handling the knives. Now, those were originally true skinning knives that he had used, correct?
Yeah.
So they.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, for anybody who hadn't watched it yet, the jail that we were in was the jail that he would have been taken to immediately after his arrest.
Uh-huh.
And
Yes.
the town that he lived in wasn't very far from this little jail that we were in.
Yes.
So there are artifacts from the house that I believe had been confiscated
Yeah.
when he was arrested. So that's
Yes.
why they didn't burn when the house burned.
Yes.
But yeah, they had taken. So in the museum, there's a few family rifles. Not one.
Not ones he
Not the
used.
ones that have been used, because in the grand scheme of things, you put Ed Gein up against all of these other very notable serial killers. They use him in the same conversation as Dahmer or.
Yeah, and he wasn't that kind of serial killer.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't a predator in that sense.
No,
he
he
wasn't
only
a
killed about
bunny
5
kind of
people.
Predator. I wrote a blog and they titled it of just becoming sympathy for the devil, because he was just
It was
he
weird.
was sick.
Yeah.
I went in not expecting I didn't walk in with a whole lot of expectation of what to feel.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect to feel sympathy. I didn't expect to feel sorry for this man.
Well, it's not something you would think that you would normally feel. It just, a majority of the things he made were from bodies that he stole after they,
Oh, yeah.
Really, he only killed a few people, but it was more the grotesque acts that he had done and his mental state. I mean, and I don't know, I knew Zach Beggins was trying to get his car. The car resurfaced, supposedly. It was gone because after the house burnt, the car went on a sideshow circuit for a while. and then it disappeared. It was kind of like, the Spider Porsche of, and there was some issues with it. And then I heard that he had found it and was trying to get the car. And it was a station wagon. I think it was Olds or Buick station wagon he used to retrieve the bodies in. But, it was such certainly a lot of, and it's going to sound horrible, but a lot of horror writers owe him a debt of gratitude, because this guy changed the face of sci-fi horror on movies, on TV. I mean,
oh, totally. There was a ton of it. It's the same kind of like, it feels weird to say like calling him creative, but
yeah,
like, it's not totally inaccurate.
But there's got to be a little bit of creativity to come up with a nipple belt. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah. And that's and okay, gross as this is going to sound, he learned how to tan the leather, no different than if it was a cowhide or anything else. He learned how to remove the skin. I've got buddies. I used to hunt when I was younger, and we hunted deer, and there's an art to gutting a deer and removing the pelt. I mean, there's nothing removing the meat, but when you have to actually save the pelt and you have to remove that for buckskins or whatever, that is a very tedious, and it involves a lot of steps. And he did this. He basically ran a tannery, even though it wasn't for animals, it was for humans. It was still a tannery. But, if you look at all the things he done, for a man who had all the mental conditions he had, he was still able to perform quite technical and quite artistic ability with tanning and certainly making things. Now, I agree, nipple and belt aren't the two things you'd ever think could go together.
Nipple belt is weird. The box of vaginas is odd.
Yeah. And then the skin suit, he had a full suit. I think they confiscated that. I mean, but it certainly gave us new things that we never had nightmares about. And I think... Pardon?
The thing about him was, though, he wasn't always crazy.
No.
And what I mean by that is, like, he'd have very lucid, very normal patterns of thinking. And then it's like something disconnected in his brain when he had these episodes. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, he talked about that he would black out. He wouldn't remember doing.
Yeah, he didn't remember any of where we went and got the bodies or anything. He would not remember.
And I remember hearing that and thinking, that sounds like a great cover story for some sick bastard who's out there doing that stuff. But I'll tell you what, when I picked up that knife, that's exactly what I got. I don't know for sure that the knife was the one that was used, but it definitely had his energy in it, because I got the vision of him standing over somebody. And it was like this flash of all of a sudden he popped back into his body and he's looking at this gutted body in front of him going, what the hell did I do?
Yeah. And
a moment before he wasn't there.
And he looked back at like the I'm looking for transcripts of like his interrogations, and they would be like, we found this in the city of your house, and he's like, oh, well, if you found it there, it must be mine. Like, just this very
matter of fact kind of way.
Yeah.
That, and I'm no criminal psychologist for sure, but I mean, simply, one thing that I guess that resonates with him and like Dahmer and Gacy, none of these, doctors, we work in the medical field. When you work, when you work in a medical field, one thing you realize is you become a bit desensitized to the human body, and you don't look at it the same way. When I thought of H.H. Holmes,
there's like clinically speaking a level of psychopathy that has to happen when you work like
to
that.
Survive.
There has to be that attachment.
Yeah, we had a graveyard humor we used for years, and I mean still do, and it's not as politically accepted now. We have to be careful where it's used at, but certainly it's what kept us sane in that respect. So I look at H.H. Holmes, I see a doctor who viewed bodies as nothing more than the detachment of a doctor to patient. When you take somebody like Gein, and especially somebody like Gacy and Dahmer, they're looking at it, how did that disconnect happen in their mind? Because they were never physicians, they didn't have medical training, and yet, they were able to ascertain the same, dislocation, to be able to do what they need to do, and to enjoy it at that. Now with Gein, yes, the difference was he wasn't cognate when they were questioning Gacy and they were questioning Dahmer. They were quite quite cognate and quite knowledgeable what they did. With him, yes, he had these blackout sessions and he didn't remember it. And I think when you look at the questioning, I think that some of that has to do with the fact he wanted it to end. He knew something was wrong. He knew something happened when he was out and didn't know what it was, but he wanted it to stop. And for him, I think that's why the questioning was such that, if it's in my house, it must be mine. Well, I think
he wanted to go.
Yeah, he wanted to go.
Don't they call it a disassociative fugue now?
I believe that is the new medical term for it. They're changing terms, and they wait till I decide to retire, and then they decide to change all these terms. And it's bad enough I could keep up with them when I was working. Now, I have to try to pick up on. But I believe that is the new terminology. And of course, when they burnt the house down, the state wanted him gone. They just wanted that mark removed, and it will never happen. Once it's happened, you can't undo it.
Oh yeah, and put the
they won't
back in
take.
the tube.
Yeah, they won't take credit for burning the house down. It was
No.
mysteriously an accident.
Yeah, and certainly the fire department didn't respond right away, and nobody bothered to call them, and they were almost 40 minutes late in response. I mean, hell, average response anywhere in the United States is 7 to 10 minutes, and I mean,
Yeah, no, they wanted it gone 100%, but
Yeah.
never admit to that.
no, and you could see, the hoarding, everything. You could see where the disconnect came in and where he started having the issues. And I know Heather was talking. We were talking about that some of the areas that his mother, after she passed, that she frequented, he basically just closed those areas off.
Oh yeah, like almost actually boarded up like her old room and.
Yeah, because it makes you wonder a great deal about that, and it just is incredible looking back on it. But certainly, now, did you find any evidence that he was there at the jail?
So him specifically, no, but it's definitely like that investigation, which I want to say I've got footage, but it's like a vertical orientation because it was a live stream that we had done.
Yes.
Kind of changed my perspective on quote unquote haunted objects. Because I always had this, I don't know, it's almost like a very mild cognitive dissonance when I hear somebody talking about a haunted object. Like it's this thing that has a spirit, like basically shackled
Inside
to
it, yeah.
And
Well, I would try to avoid.
Louisiana right now.
Yeah, I'd avoid Louisiana because
yeah.
there's a haunted object doing a.
It's a tour.
Yeah, I don't know what you call it, a tour or a barn burning, but anyway, yeah.
And I was gonna say, my thoughts have always been, I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe in quote unquote haunted objects. I think there are spirits that prefer to stay around things. So, like for me in particular, at least at this point in my life, if I were to like kick the bucket tomorrow, I can't think of a singular place that I would spend all of my time at. I would go back to Kelly. There are certain things that I would definitely gravitate more towards,
Sure.
but not necessarily a house, a place, which honestly, if we're getting into the semantics of it, a house is a thing. Any allegedly haunted house,
true.
a haunted object is just much bigger.
And you hope you don't run into the Beetlejuice theory where you're locked into a certain thing with no
Right.
choice.
Yeah, that's pretty rare.
Yeah, God forbid the sandworms. I mean,
Well, Annabelle technically possesses the doll. It's not a haunted object.
Yeah, technically she just possesses it rather than it having an attachment. But I will say, and this goes into the mirror we have here. We've had several opportunities to have a haunted museum, and I don't want to be like Zaphis
Well,
or
I mean, we're kind of halfway there. At
Tony.
This point.
Yeah, at this point we're probably halfway there. Yeah, I mean, it's, and I always tell people as many garage sales and estate sales as we attend, because everybody goes, "You resell that?" I go, "No, we keep all that shit." And that's why we have a
ask the
6,500 square foot house. Anyway, but yeah, I told him, I said, there's a lot of things, and I'm not cutting you off, but I do know there's, our mirror. I wouldn't call it a haunted object, but I would call it a portal. the more I think about it over the years, it's a portal. And we bought this beautiful, and I'm not going to go into great detail because we have I'm just doing it because I don't want to keep you guys forever, and I want to cut one more subject in on this. But anyway, we have a session, an episode of our show called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. And I bought this mirror years ago, and I'm a member of as you know, is the Freemason fraternity, and I consult with a lot of paranormal people that call me, dealing with Freemasonry, Knights Templar, Shriners, so forth. I'm members of all those, and we at the Scottish Rite Cathedral downtown in Annapolis is one of the most beautiful cathedrals you've ever been in. White Russian oak throughout, molded ceilings. I mean, this thing is just without words. And I found this mirror. It looked like it belonged there. It had wonderful woodwork. Had a marble shelf where you put things on there, like it was designed for a hat in the early 1900s. So you set your hat and gloves down there while you were getting dressed. And it was a parlor mirror for an entryway. Goes floor to ceiling. And I was at an actual auction shop, and the guy looked at me, and I was looking at him. He says, "You really like that, huh?" I said, well, yeah, I do. I said, he said, well, it's got one broken piece of lumber here, but all you got to do is glue it back. He says, I'll tell you what. I said, well, what do you want on it? Because I knew it was going to be more than I wanted to put out. He goes, $100. And I said, that's it? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, what's wrong with it? Because, you can't really go, is it haunted? Because then, the whole demeanor of the shopping trip changes. But anyway, I look at him, I go, what's wrong with it? He goes, nothing. It's big, it's bulky, and I'm afraid it's going to get broken. I don't want it here. So we bought it and brought it home, and we stored it. We didn't put it in the house because we were renting a house. It was much smaller. So eventually we did get it over to the rental house. We put it right in the entryway, right after the front door. And we started having tons and tons of activity. So fast forward, we're at one of the Paracons, and Heather and my Andrew, my chief of staff, they all like going to the psychic readings, and I don't. And I think we were talking about this last time around. Chip Coffee it gives me the creeps. I mean, it really does, because I always think he's fishing around my head like a file cabinet. And now his husband's very nice. I get along with him. I have nothing against Chip Coffee. I want to say that, but it always worries me a little bit. He's digging around in my head every time I see him. And so, but actually, Andrew and I think it was Jennifer, our research manager, and Heather went to go see Patty Negri. And I met Patty the hard way. We were at one of the Paracons, and I had just bought brand new phones for me and Heather. And, let's face it, cell phones are not cheap these days. You're paying $1,000 for a phone. You're paying on it for 2 years. It's like buying a used car on credit. And I get out here, and she's apparently buying something from Patty. And I look down, and she has this phone in her hand, and it is cracked. And, oh, my God, I come unglued. I was standing there with my tech manager, and I looked at her, and I said, Jesus Christ, we just got those 2 days ago. And I said, you've already broke the screen. Without missing a word, Patty looks at me and goes, I'm so sorry. I was going to get it replaced next week. I go, oh, shit, it's Patty's phone. And needless to say, I looked like an ass at the time. And I started to walk off. My tech manager, Tim, looks at me and says, hey, you want to go yell at any of the other vendors? I said, it's not funny, asshole. And we walked away. Patty has never forgot me. She knows me now. It's always, she always calls me by the name, Chief. Hey, Chief. And,
shows him her phone. Look.
Yeah, she did. The next year, she showed me her phone. I think we seen her at Sault Ste. Marie, and she showed me her phone, and she got it replaced. I thought, oh, God, how did I do that? But I'm going to let Heather tell the story. You were in with the open reading form, and what did she tell you?
Which part?
Well, initially, Heather went to ask about her mother.
Yeah, I just went to ask, about my mom, and then I was up, I was asking, I was at the end of my discussion with her, and I was turning around, and I was about to go to my seat. I said, thank you. And she goes, oh, by the way, you have an active mirror in your house. And me and the rest of my group that was there, we all looked at each other with our mouths hanging open like a bunch of fish. Like, what? Like, oh my God. Because I never mentioned one word about a mirror at all during my, while talking to Patty. And she just comes out of the blue talking about the mirror. And
I said your mother came through it and asked you about some rings her mother had left her. I didn't even know about them. We've been married. We got married in 2020 during COVID.
And she goes, you know, your mom left you some rings, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And she's like, well, you should go sit in front of the mirror sometimes and, you know, try and communicate with her. I was like, oh, okay. Because I was flabbergasted. My flabbers had been gasted.
Yeah, we you know, first time we knew the mirror, because we had some suspicion that the mirror was active, and we had some things going through it. And funny thing is, we're walking out, and I had put, you know, after we had, I knew.
Yeah, go tell them about what you said.
Well, yeah, I put a railroad spike and a few things in front of it to kind of block it, because we didn't know what was going on, but we thought something was coming through it. So before I left, I did what I could to block its path. So I look at Heather and I go, and I didn't mean it the way it came out. It was one of those days I should have never stopped drinking. But anyway, I looked, and Dave Schrader happened to be standing there, which was helpful as hell. And I said, well, we got to go home and let your mother out. And, you know, it came off really wrong. And,
yeah, like she's in a crate or something.
Yeah, and Dave looks at me, he goes, you know, you are a sick son of a... I go, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, but, yeah, so we have an object, and we've had some other objects. I actually have a piece of concrete I brought back from 9/11. I've got some other things in here. What is attachments to, I don't know for sure. But, you know, I'm quite sure we have a few items that have some. Now, I'm not trying to blow you off on your theory either. I mean, whether they're objects that are haunted, you know, or whether they're objects that are attached, I'm not sure. I do believe there's a difference. But I do believe...
and that's kind of what I was starting to get at. I was proven not completely incorrect, but potentially very incorrect in a teetering on clinically fascinating way. So we're doing this investigation, and the knife is in a locked case, and we're in Gene's cell, and not a whole lot's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of ours who had been like kind of our liaison for this investigation, he's like, give me just a sec. He runs out to where they keep all the keys, and they actually open up the case.
Wow.
And we have a Eddy sitting on top, environmental detection instrument, and obviously the vibration sensor goes off with it when he opens the case.
Sure.
But when he's doing that, the EMF also goes off at rates of, God, what was it?
I don't remember now, but it was
16 plus milligauss.
Wow.
And we're like, okay, he bumped the case, recalibrate it. We recalibrate the Eddy. It's going off. We're like, there's no way these readings are real. We get 3 separate EMF detectors, and they are getting the exact same reading in that spot, like directly above where the knife is, where we had set the Eddy. And for 20 minutes, we get this huge, like, just surge of electromagnetic fields coming from either the knife or the area around the knife. And we're testing this out. We're removing all electronics from the room outside of
at one
the
point,
Eddy and the K2 meters.
At one point, everybody left, and I stayed in there by myself, and there was nothing in there with us except the devices and me, open box, and they're still going.
And they're like, okay, well, let's try this. We'll close the case back up. We closed the case, and it's still going wild.
Wow.
It stopped the instant that case was relocked.
Wow.
Yep. And here's the thing. Like, you have to think about, we talk about residual hauntings all the time.
Yes.
That the energy, the memory of an item, a location, that energy is playing over and over again.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily mean that it's haunted because there's a residual, they would call it a residual haunting. But
Sure.
like, the spirit isn't there. The spirit isn't.
No, it's
in
just an
the
imprint.
house.
It's not an interactive, intelligent spirit. Just an imprint.
Yeah. I almost wonder if haunted objects are like that.
Could be.
Where like the energy, Ed's energy, was left in those items.
Well,
and when the box opened, that energy, not necessarily him himself, but that energy was reacting.
Well, a good example of that would be the Flight 401. I don't know how familiar you are with the Ghost of Flight 401. When I was a kid, I went and saw this at a theater, so this would have been in the 70s. And had Ernest Borgnine in it as the ghost. But anyway, there was actually 2 ghosts in the study. But when the plane crashed, they salvaged as many parts as they could from it. every time they put a part on a newer plane that was still flying, the ghost would appear on that plane. They took the part off, the ghost would go away. And they finally got all... Delta was the airline, I think, in question. It was either Delta or Ozark. I'd have to look back to tell you now. And every time they figured that out, the correlation of the new parts, they got them all together, roped them off at the warehouse, kept them about a year, and they destroyed everything to make sure that it never got back on. And then the ghost never came back on any of the flights. So... But the funny thing with that was there was one, most of the time it was almost residual energy. The ghost would appear, not say anything, just be there. And it kind of gave you that wondering. But there was one time a part was put on a plane that was going to have a fire. And the captain actually appeared in the lower level. They were on 747s. And said, hey, this plane is going to experience a fire. And this is where the fire will be at. And that's all he said. And it happened. You know, it turned out he predicted it quite well. And they were able to save the plane due to the fact they were watching for this. So, but I mean, I guess there's, you know, it's hard to say. I do believe that you may be right that a lot of objects are simply residual imprints. But I think there's still some out there that are interactive.
And I wonder if some of that's not... I mean, obviously we can only speculate on how things like work for them.
Sure.
But you almost got to wonder if that residual energy is, you know, and we were describing it obviously residual up until there was that warning message. I almost wonder if for them, like the energy we leave behind or that they left behind is almost like for us, we can almost, the best we compare it to is like, we know where we've been and we can go back there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like we leave this energy-based residue on something, and now that's an easier, like, stepping off point for them.
Well, I think Einstein called it a stacked reality. You have different, that you can travel between those folds, you know, to the different points, and that could be. I mean, that very well could be. I mean, it's that's the wonderful thing about parapsychology. It's not an exact art. So I always tell people there's no, you know, where physics and thermodynamics and everything else, you have laws, you have theorems, you have not here. You know, everything's subject to change, and the more we find out, the more we don't know. Well, guys, I hate to do this because I wanted to cover Monroe Demon House, but we've kind of been on more than an hour, and I don't want to keep you forever, and I know we don't want to keep the listeners forever. So, I'm going to go around the table, and we'll start with our guest. Chris, do you have anything you would like to add before we close out the show?
No, I'm feeling pretty good. There's obviously that's like social media plug, find Travelers Moon on socials, but no, this is great conversation.
Outstanding. And Kelly, do you have anything you would like to add?
Just be safe out there. You know, on the heels of us sharing our story about Fairfield, just remember that not everything out there is evil. 99.7% of what you run into is just a person, and try to remember to treat them that way.
I'll add to that. I always said that it's not the dead I fear, it's the living. They're the ones that worry me. You know, before we move to my crew, do you guys want to put a plug in for anything, for the books, for the website, now you guys have a podcast as well, don't you? You used to do the Facebook Live.
We used to.
I thought you used to, but I couldn't find it anywhere when I got looking.
Yeah, the Travelers Moon podcast, I want to say it's still on reruns are still put out by Paranormal Buzz Radio.
Okay.
But yeah, we're anywhere online at Travelers Moon Para. Our website's travelersmoonpara.com. That's where you can find links for signed copies of the book, but they're also both available on Amazon. That is What Happened in Lancaster, A Travelers Moon Investigation, and Fear and Fascination in Edinburgh Manor. Our YouTube channel is going to have that What Happened in Lancaster video out very soon. I'm going to try to start building hype around that as soon as I'm through the final stages of production with it. But
outstanding. Well, I'll have to get a book and then hang on till I see you next. I used to aggravate Jason all the time because I bought up all the books that him and God, I can't think of, Jason and Grant had written together. And every show I'd bring a handful. And about the third or fourth year, he looked at me and he says, "Have you got them all now?" I said, "Yeah, there's one more. I left it in the van." He says, "Well, go get it before you leave here." I go, okay. And we were kind of laughing about that. I think that was the most conversations him and I had, because that was the year that the Dakota Landing and the Fear Crew had got very popular. And I remember coming up on the floor. I don't remember where we were at, but we were on the Paracons, and I was standing there with him, and they were wind up around the room we were in to see them. And I looked at him. I said, "You remember when you were that popular?" He said, "Yeah." Yeah, I said, "No offense." He said, No. He says, "Fame is fleeting." And, I know last year, Amy and Adam got their show canceled. I mean, we're kind of downside of a bell curve of paranormal right now, it would seem, at least television-wise. So, but I hope you guys do well with the books. I mean, it sounds fantastic. Maybe next time, the one subject we didn't get to cover, I'd like to go over Monroe Demon House with you, because we're looking at going up there very soon. So I wanted to kind of get with you on that. But I'll tell you what, Heather, what would you like to add?
I don't know.
All that build up, and you got
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Okay.
Drink water.
Oh, that's good.
Rub dirt in it.
Yeah, it's probably not healthy, but okay. Yeah.
Wise words from Heather.
Yeah, wise words from Heather. Yeah, drink water. Yeah.
And rub dirt in it.
Yeah. I do. I get a branch with my scotch every once in a while. Sierra, what would you like to add?
I just wanted to do a quick thank you. It was a really insightful conversation as a new investigator, so I enjoyed hearing your guys' take on things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to thank you guys. We've always been friends. We've been friends for a long time, and I appreciate you coming on. If there's something we can do for you, you know where to find me. You got my number. That's my personal number too. That we're not giving out on air, obviously. But anyway, yeah. BR 549. No. But yeah, I mean, certainly if there's anything to do, if you're in this area, hey, we'll buy you a drink. Stop by the crypt and we'll talk. We're still under construction here, but we're working out a pretty good setup. We got a pretty good setup as it stands, and hopefully we can get you back on. Maybe cover a few more subjects. Now, where's your next stop? Where's your next Paracon?
Next Paracon. That ironically enough is Fairfield County Infirmary.
Yeah.
Next stop is New Illinois. We'll be back at Edinburgh Manor the week after. We're doing something with
We're at
an
Camper
Iowa.
House this weekend. Then the next week is
Bremer County Historical Society. We're doing something with them here in Iowa. Then Edinburgh Manor. Then Fairfield County Infirmary.
Oh, outstanding. Okay,
The
well,
next 4 weekends.
we have
outstanding.
more past that, but we can't hardly remember those four. So,
Well, that's I tell you, I always tell everybody, just look on the website on the calendar.
I can hardly remember what I have for breakfast.
Yeah, we
though.
live off of a calendar, and unfortunately, it's gotten to
yeah,
that.
God bless our calendars on our phone, man. Or I would be lost.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we do. We use Google Calendar, and that's what we run on. And her and I's are shared, so anything we put on automatically goes on the other, and it helps. As far as spirit calendars, we keep that on the website, but we also have that. We use a band app, which is our communication app between the group, and we keep the dates on there. And we try to do all the Paracons by mid-September, because that's when we start picking up lectures. Lecture circuit runs good. I always kill it off 2 weeks before Christmas, because we get a house full here at Christmas. We usually have about 14 people spending the night Christmas Eve, and so we have a house full. All 4 bedrooms are full, and it's quite an operation. So we try to get that out so all of our members get a time to spend Christmas with their families and so forth. So we try to wind things up. But I'm sure our paths will cross again. If not, you got our number. And folks, for this, it is that hour. We are wrapping up our show here tonight, and we'd like to thank you all for being here. Hey, folks, it's time for the Ghost Story of the Day with Heather Lawson.
This comes from Hoosier Folktales, Folk Legends by Ronald L. Baker. It's called Face in the Wall Reminds Motorists Who Drive Slowly. There's a place out on Fruit Ridge Avenue where the road turns to cobblestone. There is a brick wall that also runs along the road. It is said that a boy was dragging and smacked up against the wall and died. His face was so smashed that the impression of his face is said to have been imprinted in the brick wall. When people go by there, they see the face on the wall and it reminds them to slow down.
Thanks for listening to Ghost. Again, I'm your host, Chief Lawson. You can find Ghost to Ghost on all major formats on the 15th and 30th of the month at midnight. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, maybe have a question or subject you'd like to ask about on air or be used on the show, please email us at ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com, ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com. I want to thank my production staff on Spirit, Jennifer Verne, our research manager and our producer, and Heather Lawson, our trainer on Spirit and our podcast director, for helping make these podcasts possible. My chief of staff, Andrew Brooks, for his guidance and help on the scripts, and everyone else involved. Thank you so much. See you next time. Until then, stay safe and remember the truth is out there. Good night. Ghost to Ghost podcast and its contents is the property of Spirit Paranormal Ltd. All rights reserved. We welcome you to download and play the podcast and share with others for personal use. You may not, except with written permission, use or distribute its contents for commercial use. Spirit Indiana Paranormal, covering the Hoosier State since 2002, Indy's oldest parapsychology investigation group. If you're experiencing what you believe to be paranormal issues, reach out to us for help at www.spiritindiana.com or call our hotline at 317-883-9103. Again, that is www.spiritindiana.com or our hotline at 317-883-9103. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and the ones you love, and be safe out there.